welcome to the Understanding Projects podcast. My discussion today is with Nicole Lopez. In her role as a real estate agent, Nicole is dedicated to helping people achieve their real estate goals. She focuses on building strong client relationships and ensuring her clients are educated on the home buying and/or selling process so they know more, are prepared, and thus feel confident on their real estate journey. Prior to her work in real estate, Nicole was a senior program manager in the biopharmaceutical industry. During our discussion, we talked about how her knowledge of project management has helped her be successful in her real estate practice. Our talk was an excellent example of how the tools and techniques of project management can be used in practically any profession or industry. Here is Nicole Lopez. When we've been talking in the past, you've talked about the use of project management during your real estate practice. And so my first question is, tell us a little bit about your background. Were you a project manager who moved into real estate and brought that knowledge with you? Or did you start in real estate and then realize that project management would be useful and then brought it to you? So which way did it go for you?
For me, it was the first way, the one that you mentioned originally. I was a project manager, so I have a background in science, and I was project managing in the biopharmaceutical industry. So I started off with project management, just general project management, contracting, doing scope work for a lot of the clinical research that we were doing. Then I progressed into more clinical development and monitoring, spent some time in medical affairs, doing some project management, marketing, and strategic planning. So I had a breadth of experience of project management in the biopharmaceutical field.
Right.
And that's where I developed my skills and really honed the practice.
Okay. So then at some point in the last few years, you made a decision to say, okay, I've done this, but I'm kind of attracted to doing that, which is real estate. How did you come? What was it that prompted you to move from a project management career to a real estate career?
So Dave, just to give you a little bit of background, I come from a real estate family in the sense that I grew up with my mom practicing real estate, and my dad eventually did some real estate as a second career. So I've been exposed to it, and I knew on the periphery, what was happening. And during high school, I spent some time working part-time in a real estate brokerage. Mm. So what had happened is around the pandemic, some personal issues came up, and I needed to be able to have some flexibility to spend more time with the family. Right. And I was thinking of, what can I do? Well, in biotech and biopharma, I really enjoyed it because I was helping people. I was helping to get drugs to market, helping to get, discoveries, just really helping patients and people. So when I was looking at for a new career path or something else to do, I was thinking, what can I do that can help people? What can have a more immediate impact? And just talking to people and my father, real estate really popped up. It kept popping up that this is somewhere you can help people and you can actually have a little bit more flexibility with some personal aspects and helping my family a bit more.
Oh, that's nice. And yeah, so in effect, you were sort of coming home in a way in terms of it was kind of the family business, but yeah, I identify with what I think, you're saying is that within the organization that you were working for as a project manager, mm-hmm. I'm taking or assuming that it was a larger organization, and that can be an excellent training ground for a lot of business skills, project management skills, processes, and so on. I identify that with myself. I spent over 20 years in a large financial services institution, and the training and the methodologies that I gained just naturally by being there for a number of years, I've been able to transfer into other things, like, for example, into education. So I'm with you on that. So you made the move into real estate.
Yes.
And I think, part of the theme of our talk today is the use of those project management tools and techniques and skills and so on. And so I guess my first question is how did you come to see real estate as a project? If you're going to use project management, it would follow that, well, I guess there's a project in there somewhere. So describe where the project is in real estate.
So I would describe the project in real estate as working with a discrete buyer or a discrete seller. So each individual client or clients that you're working with I would consider that a project, in the sense that you are initiating work with that particular individual, you're planning, you're executing, and then you're finally closing. And I would consider the close as the deal completion in terms of a project. So in the simplest term, a project is a temporary, endeavor of task activities that you do to accomplish a specific deliverable. So a real estate transaction from a buyer perspective or from a seller perspective, I would consider that as a project. So it's mini projects happening quite often in the true sense of project management.
Yeah, no, I agree with that completely. That definition of a temporary endeavor, and yes, that you may have permanent or long-term clients, but with separate deals, with each one being viewed as a separate deal. And one of the key features of projects is that they are considered to be unique. And as anyone who's been involved in a real estate transaction, they are all unique. I've been involved in many as both a buyer and a seller, and everyone has its little challenge. I mean, you would know that more than
I would agree. Every person is unique. So just by the fact that the individual is unique and they're looking for a specific property, so they have specific timeline, they have a specific budget, they have specific needs for the property that they're looking for, it just makes it unique inherently by those specifications.
Yeah. What did you find as your biggest challenges, like going into that role? Like, it sounds like you worked on it, you said part-time and so on, you have a familiarity and so on, being part of, with it being kind of the family business and so on. So you're probably aware of it, but when you got into it, what were the things that, you found the most challenging? What was it that kind of set you back a little bit in terms of saying, wow, this is more harder than I thought?
So I think for me, time management was one of the key elements, because you can be working around the clock 24/7. So that's the one thing. And my main purpose for making the career switch is to be able to have some more flexibility. So it was making sure that I am able to balance my time and my energy, because you don't want to, work 24/7 and burn yourself out. You want to make sure you're as fresh as possible and you are up on the latest information in terms of the industry to help your clients to the best of your ability. So time management, I think, was one of the key components. And then, even though you have exposure to real estate, relationship building. So it's building those relationships and building your, as I say, database, or your client base. So those are the things, because I'm new to the business. Yes, maybe I might be transferring some of them from my father to myself, but it's still a matter of you developing relationships with individuals.
Right.
So I think.
Yep, and that's always that's always the challenge when you're starting out new, especially in a sales sort of environment, is getting those connections out. So how did you find, now bringing project management into it? What were or three things that helped you with that, with
Oh,
your real estate work, that helped you with those challenges and just your real estate practice in general?
okay. So in terms of time management, one of the things or techniques that I've used is time blocking. So having specific times of the day when you are dedicating to making calls, dedicating to your marketing, dedicating to having appointments with individuals, and also making sure that you have time blocked for your personal, personal planning. So whether it's family time, whether it's vacation time, etc. So then you have a sense of, okay, this is what I have blocked off to do, and then you can get the work done. Though I do the time blocking, you also need to be a little bit flexible, but keeping in mind that you really need to be taking care of yourself in addition to building your business. So that's one aspect of time blocking. Another element that I found that I really pulled in from working in the biotech was the strategic planning and goal planning. So, I started using it, but this year I've even delved in deeper. So really having a strategic plan for your particular business and seeing yourself as the business rather than, when you're a project manager, it's the company necessarily that you're working for or the department that's the business. So now looking at yourself as the business and having strategic goals, and then having a calendar where you have, quarterly goals that you want to achieve, and then you break it down a little bit more into your monthly goals, and then making sure that you track that on a regular basis. So tracking your time, tracking your budget, and just tracking your activities.
Yeah, that's really interesting because you're right. When you're managing a project, normally you are, and within organizations, you are managing the project on behalf of someone, like the project sponsor, a department in the organization. There's somebody that you're managing it for them, and they have they have their goals and objectives and their strategy and so on, and that you're sort of you're helping them accomplish that through the completion of the project. So in this case, you were looking, and what I'm perceiving, you're looking for, well, who am I doing it for? These projects that I'm doing, well, I'm doing it for myself. Like I am the organization, the business is me. So it's interesting. You are, in some ways, playing the role of both the project manager within the deals, but also you are the business, you are the project sponsor as well, and playing sort of both of those roles,
Right.
And therefore creating that strategic plan and those goals and objectives that you can track.
Exactly. And in addition to that, so if I break it down even further, I do have strategic goals or strategic planning discussions with my clients in terms of, what are their expectations? What are their timelines? And as we gather more information, sometimes the scope changes slightly. So, depending on how the market shifts or maybe their budget or whatever's happening in the market. So I do have that on a client basis as well.
Right. Yeah, I'd imagine you'd have with a client when we talk about project management, we inevitably we come to the constraints, even the original triple constraints of scope, time, and cost.
Yeah.
I'm imagining that would be a useful discussion to have with a client as you start a deal, to say, okay, what's the scope? What are we trying to accomplish here? You say you're on the buying end. You want to buy a house. What type of a house? Bungalow, condo. What is it?
Before you even get there, cost, budget, finance. Finance is the number one thing that needs to be discussed first, because we don't want to get a client or have a client get excited about a particular property and then turn to find out that's not even close to what they can afford. So it's really understanding and working with a financial advisor. So I work with a mortgage broker, or if they have their own mortgage specialist, but working with a financial strategist to really understand what they can afford and what are the options out there, because sometimes there are specific options that are not readily recognizable or that clients are aware of. So having that discussion so they are fully aware of what's available to them, so they can make an informed decision on what's the best approach for them to take. And then once we have that cost element figured out, then we can go into the details about, okay, so what are you looking for? This is what's out there with regards to your budget. Okay, now let's get down to it.
No, that's a really good point, because the danger is get them all excited about, a certain type of property, and then the bad news is, oh, I'm sorry, you're not going to have that. That would not be good. I've often used an example within my classes of, if you were purchasing a car, is the exact same thing of, okay, let's first of all, do you have $5,000 or $50,000 as your budget? If it's $5,000, let's not go buy the BMW lot. Like let's not go there, because there's nothing there that fits that budget. So you're absolutely right. So yeah, the cost constraint. Then I'm assuming you then go on to the scope constraint, or would you start to talk timing at that point, or are those two?
Timing. Well, it depends, because if you're having that financial discussion and the client is ready, they're able to move, they have the funds, they have the down payment, and they have the strategy, financial strategy, then you can move forward to, what are those, what are the requirements? What are you looking for? However, if based on the discussion of the financials, they need to save a little bit more, then that's when you need to work on the timelines, and you work backwards. How much do you think you can save? And then working backwards to like, we'll get this. And then when do we think we'll be able to, start looking to be able to purchase something.
Right.
And close. Yeah,
it's interesting. Again, in my classes and so on, I emphasize how important knowledge of those three constraints are, and it just permeates everywhere, exactly. And this is exactly what you are, without, I don't think at any time in your discussions you would necessarily be saying, well, there are three constraints and we're going to talk about this triangle, but you're just naturally moving your way around that triangle in order to define, the parameters of what you're going to do with them. Is that they'll need to understand, you'll need to understand what their needs are, and they'll need to understand the constraints of that. Again, if they have a limited budget, in real estate terms, a more limited budget, but have the idea that they're going to be in a big 4-bedroom, 2-story house in the best part of town, those things become a disconnect. And I imagine that's the kind of thing you have to sort of help them realize where they can have a solution for their deal.
Yes, I think it's really important to make sure the clients are very educated and they have as much information as possible to make a very informed decision. Right. And then also knowing that, it's always good to start. It's important to start someplace. And then once you have your foot in the door, it's easier to move along the process and grow to different homes and expand.
I agree. I was going to the word "foot in the door" was right. You took that out of my head when I. But how do you find? Do you feel that in your clients, do they have a good sense of this, or are they unrealistic? Are you having to pull them back, or does it vary in different situations?
I think it varies in different situations, and it depends on the goals of the individuals. And I think, what I'm trying to do, one of my goals this year is to really help people know more and to be prepared so that it builds their confidence. So I think when people are educated to understand, some of the terminology, that people aren't just throwing words out, that they actually understand it, then they're able to prepare and then be confident when they get to the particular situation. And I see that more, you know, first-time buyers and people who haven't necessarily been in the market recently. However, you might have other individuals such as investors who are really looking to get a great opportunity or a great deal. So they might have funds, but it depends on how much they want to spend. Right? So they're fully educated, but it's just a matter of, is this something that they want to put their money in at this point in time? So it really depends on the mindset. Yeah. And people need to be very motivated. So for a seller, they need to be motivated to be able to sell their home. You can place their home on the market, but if they're not as motivated or there's no burning desire that they need to sell, then, you know, that home may stay a little while.
Right. You know, as I'm thinking about the constraints, I'm thinking about the other constraints. So there are, you know, 3 other constraints of quality, risk, and resources.
Yes.
And I'm just thinking of a real estate deal of risk would be another one that you would work into your discussion.
Yes.
One that I can think of right away is you know, if somebody is you know, can technically, you know, afford a mortgage, but it's stretching them, they'll need to understand the risk. You know, well, what if rates go up 2%? Are you okay? And so that's, again, risk is another important concept that permeates not only project management theory, but real life, where, you know, real estate deals, that is real life.
Yes. Another risk, I think the financial one is more readily recognizable, but another risk, I think, maybe wasn't as apparent, especially in the height of the pandemic where there were multiple bids happening. And oftentimes people went into offers because there was like 50 other offers and they wanted to get it. They removed certain conditions. So they might have removed conditions on financing because they said they had, you know, are pre-approved, or they removed conditions on home inspection. So those are 2. So technically, if you remove the condition on a home inspection, a home inspector comes in and takes a look at the home and points out any kind of things that might need to be remedied, etc. So if you remove that and you move into the home and later find that, oh, you know, there's an issue with foundation, I'm just saying a big one, or issue with the roofing, that homeowner now needs to, you know, own that, and that cost is on them. Whereas if, you know, you had that in your contract, it would be identified before the deal closed, and you would have been able to either renegotiate the price potentially, or you know, walk away and go to another property. And then additionally, with mortgage financing, oftentimes there's an appraisal that happens because the mortgage company wants to know that, yes, what you're paying for, yes, it appraises out to the right price that we think. Yep. And oftentimes, if it doesn't, they might not qualify for the property if the financing was in there, the clause was in there. But if the clause isn't in there and the individual purchases the home, and say for some reason they have to sell, you know, less than a year into purchasing, they might not be able to get that same price for their property if the market changes. As we're seeing now, the market's changed a little bit. So those are risks that people don't necessarily think about when they're removing conditions. And I really try to educate my clients about, if this is done, these are the potential consequences. There may be nothing wrong, but this is what could happen, right?
Yeah, and that's what good risk management is. It's awareness. It's a awareness of, okay, what are the risks? How likely are they to occur? You know, and you know, if it does occur, what will happen? You know, and so on. So having that conversation is again good project management, you know, concepts and theory brought into your discussions. That's good. So so I just want to just circle back to, and just to sort of comment and acknowledge, you had mentioned that time management was a major challenge that you had, and you were solving or at least mitigating it with time blocking. And time blocking is really just a good sort of scheduling of your time,
Exactly.
recognizing that your day is filled with blocks of time. It's not just one big, if you view it as one big mush, you can find at the end of the day it's gone, and you don't know what you did. Right. So I'm kind of viewing kind of scheduling your time through time blocking. Great idea, and I always advise, or advise students is turn the phone. If you have a time block of some kind of focus, turn your phone off or turn notifications off, because it just, it knocks you off guard, off course. Exactly. The other major challenge you talked about was relationships. Right. Challenge and something you needed to do. How did your project management background help with your relationship building, and how did you sort of see those two sort of knitting together?
So in project management, one of the things that I found helped me was building relationships with people. So building relationships with vendors, with project team members, and various stakeholders that I worked with. And it was critical in terms of building trust and building, interactions with individuals, and having an ability to have really great and smooth communication. So for me, when I say building relationships, yes, I have a base of individuals that I know, and I build those relationships, but it's expanding out to people that I don't necessarily know yet, and helping to build that trust that because they don't know me, I don't know them, and it's building that rapport and trust with individuals. So it's a slow process. I've reached out to business owners and, speaking with business owners, and just in general, friends, and asking for referrals. So one of the ways I work with my business is referrals. Mm-hmm. So if I have a friend or I've worked with somebody before, then my thinking is that usually they'll have a friend who is of similar ilk. And, that maybe if they do not already have a real estate professional that's assisting them, then I would be, willing to be that professional. So it's really trying to build up my base and, right. and rapport. It's rapport building and communication.
Right. And you're right. In projects of any type, your relationship with the various stakeholders is so important. I mean, you said you learned that in your corporate career, and I can't agree more. Is your reputation and whether people trust you is so very important. And I also like when you said the word slow, is that it is slow. It is. It isn't something where you can walk up to someone and just say, "Hi, my name is," you should trust me. Like that, yeah. that does not make sense. Yeah. They would actually probably not trust you if you said or even implied something like that. It's very subtle. I was just talking to my class yesterday, and there was an event kickoff, sort of networking event that they had the opportunity to go to, and one of the things I mentioned to them is go. Yes. Talk to people, but don't go expecting a job that moment. It's not going to happen. You're not going to meet someone and they're going to say, "Oh, wow, would you like a job?" Like it doesn't work that way. No. But you never know, is once somebody meets you and they talk to you, and then they're aware of you, maybe you see them again sometime, and sometimes this sort of magic happens, that they'll think of you. And then you'll get an email from them, and you can't even predict it. It may or may not ever happen, but it often does. And that's the thing. You can't see it going forward, but you can see it looking back. You can say, oh, like probably in your case, you probably had examples where a call comes, somebody contacts you to be their real estate agent, and then realize, well, the reason is because it's that person you talked to, or the friend of the friend who had an interaction with, and that led to something that you couldn't possibly imagine.
That's exactly it. Exactly it.
Right. So you just have to sort of trust the system, like trust the process. You're putting out goodness into the world, into
Yes.
your interactions, and it comes back.
Yes.
But that, you have to make sure you don't have a transactional view. Is that if you view it as transactional, hey, I went to that networking event and I didn't get anything, I came back empty-handed. That's the wrong view.
Right. It's what did you give? It's
Right.
like, what did you bring to the table, to that interaction? How did you help somebody?
Yeah. That's and that's it. Like, what did you give? That's the measure you should be having. A successful interaction would be, hey, I had a lot of nice conversation. It was a two-way conversation. I, provided some advice or some feedback, and that's good. If something might come from it in the future. So I guess one last question, just to sort of start to wrap up. Did you find, like, most real estate deals I've been involved in have something that happens, like
Yes.
some event happens, there's some title issue, or there's a financing issue, or there's something, and hopefully if there's only one, that's good. Sometimes there's many. Did you find your project management background helps you with that, or how do you manage those? Do you have any, tricks of the trade of those crises that happen?
Well, definitely, because working in corporate world, there was a fire to put out every day.
Yes.
At least one. If there were, none, you were like, where is it? It's hiding.
Exactly.
So what I learned is it's calm under pressure. Always remain calm. I remember, I was helping the marketing team out, and I was coordinating this big event. There was a new VP for the company was there, and I walked into the room, and everybody like jumped on me because they needed to get this done, this done, this done, this done, this done. And I just took a deep breath, and I just, one at a time, just get it done. There is going to be a solution. I think when you're calm, you take a deep breath, you think about it, there will be a creative solution to help resolve the problem. I've had, this is a little thing, but it's a big thing to my client, where maybe they didn't send them the right keys. So I had to think creatively. It was on a Saturday. They were able to get the keys within 30 minutes of identifying that they didn't have the appropriate keys. So it's being able to be calm, not to get excited and get overwhelmed, and just be able to think creatively. Okay, this didn't happen. How can we get this done? Who do I know? Who do I need to talk to? And then mitigate the situation.
Yes. No, that is very true. I'm trying to imagine if I was, in a real estate deal, and some issue came up, and I called my real estate agent, and if their reaction was, oh my goodness, this is really bad, I don't know what we're gonna, that would not, like, you're looking for that calm, sort of analytical view at that point to say, okay, this happened, we're going to solve it, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. And there's an expression, if you can keep your head while everyone else is losing theirs. I might be missing the wording a little bit, but that's the key thing in both in project management and in real estate, is if you can be that calm voice in the middle of the storm. That's really important. And like you say, when you're involved in large projects and organizations, and I imagine real estate too, the day where there isn't an issue, you kind of go, I wonder where it is. When is it going to arrive? Because I know it's out there, and that's out. It's almost it's not a pessimistic view. It's a realistic view to say, what, the world is not perfect, and there's a lot of things that bump together in various ways, and my job is to fix it.
Right.
When it occurs, try to arrange things so that it doesn't happen as much. You don't want unforced errors, but you can do your best, and things still fall. Things still foul up once in a while. So, anyways, this has been a really interesting tour through your real estate work and your relating of your project management experience to it. So thanks very much for sharing this today. It's been really interesting talking to you.
Thank you so much, Dave. I really appreciate it.
That's it for this episode. If you would like to learn more about project management, you can find my book, Understanding Project Management, A Practical Guide, on Amazon. Please also consider following Understanding Projects on your favorite podcast player or clicking subscribe on YouTube.